The day after Hillary Clinton's marathon testimony at the Benghazi hearing, we are looking at the fallout and whether this actually will help her campaign more than it'll hurt. Then Donald Trump, he's been at the top of the polls for more than 100 days, and now the vast majority of GOP insiders believe he will be the nominee. Will they now try to help him, or do they believe now's the time to take him down? Also, the Mets, they're heading to the World Series. We're going to talk to the guy who can sell you a piece of World Series history, including some incredible items from, yes, the '86 Mets. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, TGIF, and thank God it's finished as well. I'm talking about the 11-hour Benghazi marathon hearing yesterday, and after all that, the head of the committee is a Republican, Trey Gowdy, from the great state of South Carolina, pretty much admitted not much was accomplished. Take a listen.
And most important new things you learned today?
I think some of Jimmy Jordan's questioning. Well, when you say new today, I mean, we knew some of that already. We knew about the emails. In terms of her testimony, I don't know that she testified that much differently today than she has the previous time she's testified. So I'd have to go back and look at the transcript.
Okay. Now that was after it was over. During the hearing, Gowdy said the whole thing wasn't about politics, but at least somebody on the panel, Democrat Elijah Cummings, he didn't agree.
There are people, frankly, in both parties who have suggested that this investigation is about you. Let me assure you it is not.
We're better than that. And we're better than using taxpayer dollars to try to destroy a campaign.
All right, now during most of the hearing, Hillary was cool, calm, collected, but she did get in some testy exchanges after, and she wasn't afraid to battle back against certain allegations made from the panel.
You had two ambassadors that made several requests, and here's basically what happened to their requests. They were torn up.
Well, that's just not true, Congressman. Many were responded to.
Let's bring in our panel right now to get into the fallout from the hearing, I should say. I don't know about a healing. Shelley Mayer, she's a Democratic Assemblywoman representing Yonkers. Dominic Carter is a political journalist and author. And Scott Vanderhoff, an attorney and former 5-term Republican county executive. I've been meaning to ask you about some kind of record. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. By the way, is it 5?
It's happened before in the state.
Really?
I think there are 4 or 5 of them that
And did he
lasted
warn
that
you?
long.
He's like, what are you doing?
No, they all told me it's a long time.
Well, he looks none the worse for wear. Okay, you saw the hearings, or you saw at least the highlights, lowlights, depending on one's perspective. At the end of it, did she come out the same, better, worse? What do you think?
Oh, I thought she came out looking just remarkable. Dignified about the subject matter, dignified in terms of being highly prepared, articulate, intelligent, respectful of the process up to a point, and then understandably, but she didn't let it show, she made the point about the politicization of the process. I thought she really was just masterful and as good as you can get. And, you know, I really think a tremendous credit to her for the way she handled herself. I don't think there are too many people who could have done what she did.
11 hours is a long time. Dominic, it's interesting. This is the 8th time there's been hearings, not always with her, as it relates to this investigation, and in various investigations of different entities, et cetera, that have all looked into the same incident in Benghazi and the tragedy attached to it. The last time she testified, everybody remembers when she lost it. She said, what does it matter if it was guys out strolling and they wanted to kill Americans or this or that or whatever? What does it matter? There wasn't that signature moment. Do you think she did better by being calm, cool, collected, or her losing it on the panel would that have served her better?
No, she did a much better job yesterday. Indicative of that, Richard, is the fact that the secretary went on a victory lap tour today. That's how embarrassing it was for the Republicans. She killed them with kindness, substance, and came off. I think the coronation is now definitely underway towards the nomination. It's over. According to her campaign spokeswoman, she pulled in more money online last night than she has in a while. It was an embarrassment. At this point, it's looking like a complete waste of taxpayer dollars to go ahead with this.
Well, that's a perfect segue, Andrew, because, listen, at the risk of sounding on one side or the other, I'm really not. I mean, we had, 51 votes to try and repeal Obamacare. We've had 8 different hearings into Benghazi. What do we know? The public does not have a high opinion of Washington, and certainly not a high opinion of Congress. We know there's important deadlines coming around the corner with debt limits, functioning governments, et cetera. And a lot of times I'll say, you know what, yeah, there's a few bad guys up there or a bunch of bad guys here, but they shouldn't give the whole entity a bad name. Sound familiar, right? Yes. But when you do these dog and pony shows that are so patently political in terms of what it is, and maybe the other side will do it too, but it makes it so hard to defend because you know before it starts how it's going to end, and maybe there'll be a moment that'll be a 15-second soundbite on TV that you didn't plan, but with the exception of that, what was the point? And it's not even the money that was spent on the hearing, but just a waste of time and yet another black eye to what we hope our government is doing instead of what they're wasting their time on. Without sounding Mr. Smith goes to Washington, it really was depressing yesterday at a certain point.
Well, if you're going to call one of these hearings, you need one of two things to happen. You need to present some bit of evidence that people are going to go, ooh, and I hadn't learned that before. Republicans didn't seem to have that for the 11 hours of the Benghazi hearing yesterday. The other thing that you would need then to be able to declare victory is a breakdown from your witness, a stumble, an error, a contradiction. They didn't get that either. So, you know, they were 0 for 2 on everything that they were looking to get out of this hearing yesterday. And to just follow up on Dominic's point, this may have sealed the deal. I mean, Hillary wasn't in any trouble before this hearing yesterday, but there are reluctant Democrats, but particularly on her left. That's why Bernie Sanders has done better than some people had thought in the polls, who look at Hillary and say, maybe she can't escape her image. Maybe she can't escape scandals. I'm a little reluctant to go with Hillary. She answered a lot of those questions and a lot of those doubts yesterday. I think she solidified the left.
And to your point, Andrew, think about when
yesterday.
she's most popular over the years. It's when she seemed to be victimized by whoever it is, whether it be husband, whether it be people who've taken cheap political shots, and now people who, as you say, may have been skeptical will say, well, they went too far in this.
That panel did a great job unifying Democrats.
Among the many hats you wear, Scott, being an attorney is one of them. The one thing I know from talking to every attorney I know is you never ask a question if you don't know an answer, and you never put on a witness if it's not going to do you any good. Didn't somebody say to these guys, Trey Gowdy with his, I don't know what kind of hairdo's going on over there, not that I should make cracks, I grant you, but still, why? This isn't going to help you.
Yeah.
Right? You're going through a whole speaker fight and everything going on right now. Unless you got something, don't do this because it's going to make you look bad, and by virtue, it's going to make our party look bad right now, and we're not having good press. Shouldn't somebody have said, stand down, Trey?
Well, probably. I mean, I take a different view than most, however. I think the Republicans blew it, but I also think the Democrats put up, on the committee, put up a lot of the barriers to help them fight each other.
Absolutely.
While Hillary sat there and had a lollipop. But I think
it's like that in every hearing, though, other than Watergate. It's like in every hearing you can think of. But it's a partisan.
But this was so partisan, it blew it. And quite frankly, they lost the subject. The subject, the big tree in this forest that was missed, was only done by, I think it was Jordan.
Yeah.
When he said, look, the point of this initially was you all told us it had to do with a video, that it wasn't inspired by the Taliban, okay? And then you told the public over days and days and days, this has to do with a video, when you, Madam Secretary, knew the very night that it was in fact an attack on, and it wasn't.
And she responded that it was a fog of misinformation. But yes, if anybody was at least had a line of question, it was Jordan.
But it all came down to the issue of not whether the emails, where they were, but those emails sent to family and others and were different than what she told the very family who were grieving over the loss of their loved ones. She told them it had to do with a video, that it wasn't. This is only 5 days after Joe Biden said we've killed bin Laden. We're all set. There's no more problems with the Taliban. And look, this is purely political. And the whole point of this was not the emails. The point of it was, what did the administration know when this was going down? And the fact of the matter is they knew and deceived the public. And
there's debate around that, but I will say this much.
Very debatable.
Yeah, I Scott, I love you. I don't necessarily, and I've read the same thing you have, I didn't come to the same conclusion. However, it happens all the time. People think when you have any committee, right, Sure, you've got the majority by maybe 1, 2, and then you got the minority. But you always assume the majority will A, cede time to the one who's best equipped to do it, and then B, be on the same page with a line of questioning. As much as I think the Elijah Cummings and the Democrats of the world certainly kept the Democrats, Republicans, a kilter, the Republicans did it to themselves. If you just close your eyes and listen to Republicans, they were going in 6 different
It
directions.
was very disorganized, and I think the people
Why
who
does
are
that happen
experts-
so often?
Well, I
You know?
don't think it happens so often. I think it happens when the system is completely out of kilter. I think the Republicans were playing to their base. They may have said all the things you said, that this is not going to serve them, but they have a group of people who really want blood and are willing to use government processes and government dollars instead of politics. They're using the government to do the things that they want to do in politics. I think it's really wrong. I think most Americans find it objectionable, even if you're right, and I don't agree with you, Scott, about the findings. Most people would say, if that was the case when they had a hearing a long time ago, when they started this process, if these facts came out, and if they were factual, come out then. I think there's interpretation that differs. But I think people really resent the using the government process really in this overt
And as we show the
political-
audience right now, a poll that came out to 3/4 of Americans roughly, that these hearings were politically
Oh, it's no
motivated.
question.
Before yesterday's
Yeah,
hearing.
and then
so
I think you're
would
right.
expect that number to go up after.
Just going back to, I'm sorry, Andrew.
Yeah.
Just going back to what I was saying. This was not about Hillary. I mean, that's where they were wrong. I mean, she did great in terms of responding, but it goes to administration. It's Susan Rice. It's all the way. If you look at the facts right after, and that's all I'm saying is, if this thing started out on a real question and it ended up being a circus.
It was a circus. We agree.
And let's ask the question at home to our audience here. Go over to Facebook and Twitter and answer the following question. Do you think Hillary Clinton helped or hurt herself at yesterday's hearing? You certainly have heard from the panel. When we come back, we will, though, stay with politics and the Trump factor. I'll admit it, I dismissed the guy for months now, but GOP insiders, they were polled here, and overwhelmingly 81% are starting to worry that this thing's a lot more serious than it was a month ago here, and that this guy on your screen could actually get the nomination. So the question is, what do they do now? Do they decide to get behind him, or that they'll go all in to bring him down?